There is a podcast that lies between the imagination of two simple-minded earthlings. Travel with these two longtime friends, Jimbo and 80s E, as they attempt to explore the fifth dimension. Follow along with them as they take the key and unlock the door to the vast space between shadow and substance. This podcast is one of trivia, of insight, and of sounds and ideas from one of the greatest television shows ever produced. You are embarking on a timeless journey. There is your signpost up ahead. You are entering the tragedy of cinema's Twilight Zone.
It's August 1945. The last grimy pages of a dirty, torn book of war. The place is the Philippine Islands. The men are what's left of a platoon of American infantry, whose dulled and tired eyes, set deep in dulled and tired faces, can now look toward a miracle. That moment when the nightmare appears to be coming to an end. But they've got one more battle to fight. And in a moment, we'll observe that battle. August 1945, Philippine Islands. But in reality, it's high noon in the Twilight Zone.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Tragedy of Cinema podcast, the Twilight Zone series. I'm your host, Jimbo.
And I'm your other co-host, 80Z. And with us this evening, we got a special program for you tonight. We have a special guest host with us all the way from the Lone Star State. It's Bond, Jason Bond. Good evening, Mr. Bond. How are you this evening?
Hey, guys. How's it going? Mr. Bond's my dad. You guys can call me Bond.
All right. Sounds good.
We'll just call you Bond Jr.
Don't worry.
All right. So let's why don't we just get a little background on Mr. Bond, just by way of what I understand is he's been commenting and been a silent listener, I guess, as of maybe a couple weeks ago. But Jimbo, I think you had a couple questions you want to just to ask Mr. Bond, just so we get to know him a little bit better.
Absolutely.
And introduce him, and then I'll ask a few questions, and then we'll launch into our episode this evening.
Sure. So, Bond, what you may not realize is, I think it was just the last episode we recorded, I told Eric, I said, we got Bond coming up in the next episode. I said, I thought it was just one of our friends ribbing us. Like, this guy isn't real. I mean, Bond, Jason Bond. I said, that just sounds like it's going to be a joke on us at the end. You know what I mean? And I said, Eric, I'm going to play it. I'm going to reach out to him. I said, if he doesn't respond and want to come on, I said, I know it's one of our friends just making fun of us because you were leaving reviews like after every episode and all that. I said, I don't know, man. I don't know. I got a feeling it might be somebody ribbing us, but I'm glad to see you're a real person.
Well, thanks, man. Thanks. I was trying to balance it between fan and stalker the whole time. I was like, how do I reply where they're like, okay, this guy needs a life. He needs to get himself a girlfriend or something. No, I was loving the show. I was loving the episodes. And so I was like, listening in my car, talking to my radio and saying, I need to contact these guys. And I know the reviews always help. The stars always help. So I'm glad I could help where I could.
Oh, yeah. We appreciate it. So, Bond, I have about 5 questions I'm going to ask you. I like putting people on the spot. So I know I asked you some of these before in our messages, but you may have changed your mind since then. So number one, how did you hear about our podcast?
I was listening to a special of Hillbilly Horror Stories with Jerry and Tracy Pauly, and I'm a big fan of theirs. They have a great podcast over there, and you guys were guests on there reviewing a movie, and I enjoyed it. It was fun, and so I decided to listen to your podcast, and next thing you know, I was listening to 4 or 5 older episodes over the last few days. I was just one after another. And I was sharing them with my family, my brother, saying, oh, they just did Back to the Future. You got to listen to this, those kind of things.
Nice. So, Bond, out of all the episodes that you've listened to so far of our podcast, which one has been your favorite that we have covered?
In the first 2.5 seasons, I kind of have to lean with you guys and say Eye of the Beholder.
Oh, no, I'm just talking about just episodes in general of the podcast, not just necessarily Twilight Zone, which was going to be one of Eric's questions, I think. But, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But, I mean, is there a certain movie that we've covered that has been your favorite so far, too?
I think that I really enjoyed I think you guys did Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a real big one. I know I shared that one with at least 3 or 4 people that I know.
Oh,
When my
nice.
daughter was real sick, when she was just a little kid, she was in bed, just sick as a dog, and she would watch that movie over and over and over again. And we would start it over and over again. And so, of course, I shared it with her and said, listen, and I love the behind the scenes trivia that's shared with every episode. And I think that's the best part.
Nice. Bond, what are your top 3 favorite movies of all time covering all genres? I know we had this discussion and you had to think about it for a little bit in the messages the other day. So I'm going to put you on the spot so ADZ can see you squirm.
Oh, yeah, because definitely it's like it changes daily, just depending on what mood I'm in. I mean, one day it might be Star Wars. It might be Young Guns as a great movie. It might be It's a Wonderful Life around the holidays. And so it changes all the time. Those are like my big ones. I really like Back to the Future is a big one for me too. Ghostbusters, I quote all the time. And so I think any of those 80s silly comedies or movies from the 80s, I really love those.
Well, Eric, he just answered a bunch of movies he didn't say in our messages the other day because he was like, Stand By Me. He was going down.
Exactly. It changes all the time.
Yeah, like you said, it changes all the time.
Stand By Me is a classic. That's that's required viewing. You have to watch.
Hey, it's not really all it's cracked up to be.
Oh, here we go.
Who wants to see a dead body? Ooh.
Get out of here.
I might have to have Bond on. I don't think we've covered Stand By Me yet, so that might be a Bond special.
Huh.
All right, Bond.
Dreyfuss.
Who's your favorite actor of all time?
Let's see. My favorite actor of all time. I really like Tom Hanks. I think that if you follow Tom Hanks's earlier career, where he's just doing the silly little comedies, all the way to the serious stuff, the Philadelphia, even his older stuff, as he's getting older, he's like transferred really well into playing older roles. Mm-hmm. And that's really hard to do. Not really a big Tom Cruise fan. Not really a big.
Are you a rock fan?
Yeah, actually I am. It's pretty funny. I don't want to like him in movies, but every movie he's in, I like. So, and I don't know if it's him or what, but it's like, I do like every movie he's in.
And I'll have to agree with Tom Hanks. He's probably in my top 5. Like Forrest Gump, I think is just an outstanding movie. It's probably in my top 10 of all time. I just think it's so well done and ties all together. And last for me, Bond, is who is your favorite actress of all time?
Favorite actress of all time. Let me see. That would be a harder one to answer, I think. I think that I don't know if I have one. Maybe Silverstone, right? Alicia Silverstone.
Alicia Silverstone? Sure.
Yeah, I think she might be one of my favorite ones.
Okay.
All
right, Eric. I know you want to dive into some more personal stuff.
Yeah. This is get to know our co-host here on the personal level a little bit. I guess I saw, or maybe in the group chat, that you were a teacher, and I'm just curious how long you've been teaching, and are you teaching English literature? Is that correct currently at your school?
Yeah, it sure is. I teach at a private school here in South Texas, and shout out to RHCA. And I teach 4th and 5th grade. I teach the literature classes, the math classes, and so it's a really great little school. Enjoy it. Usually in my summer, I spend it outside if it's not too hot, or I do some writing. So I've written a couple books, so I do that too when it gets too hot outside.
Yeah, that was my follow-up question. Is just tell us a bit about becoming an author and some of the titles of your books and how they can. I guess the third question would be how one would find them. Are they on Amazon?
Yeah, sure. The books that I've written are on Amazon. They're kind of scary horror books, but they're not overly scary. I think they're kind of teen friendly, kid friendly. Okay. My first book was called Testimony, and it's about a group of kids that kind of want to be accepted into their new little church school. And so in order to do so, they have to spend the night in the church. And if anybody's been in a church after hours, they know how creepy and scary they can get really fast.
Eric, man, do you remember when we would have to close down the church, dude, and lock it up in that auditorium, dude? Woo-wee!
That was my sidebar. My dad, actually, the church that we attended growing up, he would lock up sometimes, and I would go with him.
And he would have me go to the opposite side of the building and turn the lights out and stuff. And I remember sprinting to get back around to him as fast as I could because, yeah, it's just, I don't know what it is. It's just creepiness. I don't know why. When all the people are gathered there, it's fine. But when you turn the lights out and it was just me and him, boy, I tell you, I couldn't get back to him fast enough.
Exactly right. Exactly. And so that's kind of what my first book Testimony is based on. It's based on these kids that are, if you think Goonies,
okay.
It would be a little bit like Goonies, a little bit like Stranger Things mixed in there. And not a lot of blood, not a lot of creepiness, but it's really scary for little kids.
Yeah. Okay.
My second book that I have written was called Born Again. And it's a book about reincarnation. And I was actually inspired to write that one based on a podcast that Jerry and Tracy did about some reincarnation cases. Okay. And so I thought, to myself, what would happen if a Christian family, a Christian mom and dad had a little boy that claimed to be somebody else? And how would they deal with that?
That's an interesting premise.
So
again, just going back, sorry.
How many?
No worries. I've written, those are my first two, and I'm working on a third right now.
Okay. So you're like the modern day Goosebump author.
A little Stein for you.
Yeah.
How long have you been teaching, though, at just in general? How long have you been teaching?
I've been teaching for about 20 years or so.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, about 20 years or so. And I've been at this school for about 7 or 8.
Oh, okay. And then like next year, you're going to be like the principal or the chancellor?
Yeah, it took me so long. I've been at this school for so long. I've been in 4th grade for 7 years. And they're finally letting me graduate. So next year I will be the head of school at, that'll be for the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, what they consider, it's called the School of Logic because it's a classical education school. School of Logic is 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, what we'd call middle school.
Okay. Good stuff. And then, you've already addressed this already, but your favorite Twilight Zone episode was,
Twilight Zone episodes. Ever since you guys threw that at me, it's been bouncing around. I think my all-time favorite episode is The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street.
Oh, that was going to be another follow-up question that I had. Had you ever shown that episode to your class, or is that for older students? Or I know that's kind of, sometimes it's part of curriculum in schools. They'll show that episode.
That is one of the ones that I'm looking forward to showing my older kids. As we talk about, I would love to use more Twilight Zone episodes to teach lessons in my classroom. I think that's a great one about paranoia, especially if you study a little history and about the Soviets and the whole Cold War thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that theme comes through very evidently, especially in season 1. There's a lot of, it permeates even through the first 3 seasons, but in particular, season 1 really focuses on, the Cold War era and all the things that surrounded that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and even the episode we're reviewing tonight, I think would be a great one to show from a historical point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, that's all I have. So I'm just gonna jump right into the episode here. This is the Twilight Zone. This is season number 3 and episode number 15, actually. It's directed by Buzz Kulik. The teleplay was by Rod Serling. And it's based on an idea by Sam Rolfe. Our original air date for this episode was December the 29th, 1961. And that brings us to our favorite spot in the podcast. The segment is called
On This Day in History.
All right, so on this day in TV and film history for December the 29th, let's go all the way back to 1948. The first broadcast of the CBS Evening News in 1948. It's the longest running network news show in the U.S. I'm sure we're probably all familiar with the CBS Evening News. Was that Dan Rather? Like during our Generation X time, did he cover that pretty much? Yeah. 1965. This one's in name should ring some bells here. The movie entitled Thunderball was the 4th James Bond film starring Sean Connery and Claudine Auger. It premiered in Tokyo, Japan. So 1965 there, December 29th. 1965 also, December the 29th, the NFL purchases the TV rights for 1966 through the 1968 seasons. They purchased it for $18.8 million. They purchased those NFL rights for, I guess that was only like a 3-year contract, but $18 million for the NFL. 1970, the world premiere of the Beatles' Let It Be documentary film. You a fan of the Beatles, Mr. Bond, at all?
Oh, I love the Beatles. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I forget the name of the most recent documentary that I think Apple TV did it. It had to do with the making of their final album. Slipping my mind now. I'm going to show my ignorance here, but 1970 was the world premiere of the Beatles' Let It Be documentary film, and it was by Michael Lindsay Hogg in New York City. 1991, the 356th and final episode of CBS's second longest running TV series, Dallas, the show Dallas. 356 episode. It's second to only one other television show. Do either one of you know what the longest running television show in history, TV history is?
I would say The Simpsons, but I don't know if that's is it not non-cartoonish? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, probably. They would have eclipsed this by now, I think, as well.
I think my guess would be 60 minutes.
Yeah, I think also that's another great guess. I think that might be like non-news, non-animated.
It's got to be Law and Order.
Gunsmoke, actually.
Really?
according to this. But, it could have been eclipsed by now. But Gunsmoke apparently was the longest running television. I would have guessed MASH before looking at this. 2002, Spider-Man starring Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin premieres. Did you like that first Spider-Man back in the day, 2002? Either one of you?
I thought it was great. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites too, of that series. 2018, the Academy of Motion Pictures and Arts and Science members of the Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, they vote to expel Bill Cosby and Roman Polanski. That was December 29th, 2018, probably for obvious reasons. We don't have to go into that.
He wanted a pudding pop.
Yeah. So I'm out of order here, but let me go back to 1982, December 29th, 1982. American college football coach Paul Bear Bryant, he ends his career with the University of Alabama at 323 wins. And it doesn't say under here whether he's the all-time winningest coach or not. But I have to leave that one for another time because I don't have that in front of me. A couple of birthdays here for December the 29th. Some famous, just people in general and actors and actresses. Charles Goodyear was born on December 29th. American chemist and manufacturer and engineer who invented the vulcanization process for rubber. He was born in New Haven, Connecticut. And also Andrew Johnson, the 17th president of the United States, was born on December the 29th. And I neglected to put the years by those, or either it got cut off. So he was obviously the president that followed after Lincoln and the assassination. And Johnson was born in Raleigh, North Carolina. If either one of you guys seen the Apple TV series, I think I told you about it, Jimbo, the series Manhunt. It's all about how they hunt down John Wilkes Booth following the assassination. It's really good. It's like a 7 or 8 episode series. And it follows, the Union Army basically hunting down John Wilkes Booth and how he was on the run. And when he jumped down out of the balcony onto the stage, he broke his leg. And then, anyway, I don't want to give it all away, but it's really done really well. I liked it a lot. But
that's if he killed Lincoln. There's a lot of conspiracies out there.
No, here we go.
That, all right. JFK, we could go down a rabbit hole there too. But
yeah, that's a whole nother podcast. But that wraps up this day in TV and film history. let me give a quick plot summary of this episode, then I'll kick it over to Mr. Bond, and Bond, as he would like to be referred to as, and he can give us our cast for this episode. All right, so here's a little plot summary. On August 6, 1945, the last day of World War II, a forward platoon acting as artillery spotters get an eager and aggressive Lieutenant Cattell. The artillery has been unable to dislodge a Japanese unit from a cage, and Cattell decides that the unit is going to attack. He suddenly finds himself in 1942, however, leading a Japanese unit that is about to attack Americans who are holed up in a cave. He looks into a mirror of sorts when his Japanese superiors order the destruction of the American stronghold. When he flashes back to 1945, he has second thoughts about the attack. All right. So, Mr. Bond, please tell us about this wonderful, illustrious cast.
All right. Our cast for A Quality of Mercy starts with Dean Stockwell. Dean Stockwell plays Lieutenant Cattell and Lieutenant Yamori, depending on what part of the episode you're on.
Right.
We know Dean Stockwell. He was a child actor that his career spanned decades. He was in A Green Years in 1946, but we know him for Dune in 1984, Paris, Texas in 1984, Blue Velvet in 86, and Beverly Hills Cop 2 in 87. He was also in Air Force One in 1997 and The Rainmaker in 1997. But really his television role is what kind of sticks out, and he was an active member of Quantum Leap.
Oh, yeah.
Quantum Leap from 89 to 93 is where you'll see him. And so our next person on our cast is Albert Samley. And Albert Samley, he played Sergeant Carasano. Carasano, is that right? I think so.
Yeah.
And you'll know him from, actually, first little thing about him is he turned down a big role early in his career. He was offered the chance to play in the movie Bus Stop with Marilyn Monroe, but he turned it down because he wasn't a big fan of film work. We do see him in a lot of Twilight Zone episodes, not just A Quality of Mercy, but also Execution, and of late, I think, of Cliffordville. He also appeared in Lost in Space and Gunsmoke. Our next cast member, you might know him. It's an actor named Leonard Nimoy. And Leonard Nimoy, of course, he's known for his role in 3 Men and a Baby in 1987. Just kidding. He's known for...
I was about to say, I don't remember him in there.
I thought
Yes.
Dr. Spock, wasn't he writing a bunch of...
Yes, original Dr. Spock from the Star Trek episodes. Of course.
Live long and prosper.
He had recorded some music. He had a brief music career in the 70s. But everybody knows Leonard Nimoy as Dr. Spock. Next, we have Rayford Barnes. And Rayford Barnes, we know him from a movie called Hondo. He was really famous for his Westerns. And so he was in Hondo, The Wild Bunch. Later, he's known as, he was in a lot of television shows like Highway Patrol, Father Knows Best, The Untouchables. Our next cast member for Quality of Mercy is Ralph Voltran. Ralph Voltran, he was in a lot of movies you've never, ever heard of before. He appeared in a film called Stalk of the Celery Monster.
Oh, that is definitely
Stalk
a
of the Celery Monster.
cover.
Yeah, you need to add that to the B movie list.
Let me write that down.
You've got to write that one down. Stalk of the Celery Monster was a great movie he was in. Girls of the Night, Bold and the Brave, Screaming Eagles. And he was in a lot of movies, like I said, that nobody's ever heard of before. Finally, we have Dale Ishimoto. And notice how I pronounced Ishimoto
Correctly.
And of course, Dale Ishimoto is of Japanese descent. And so, of course, when you see him, you know he was born in Delta, Colorado.
Okay.
He did play a Korean doctor on the TV show MASH. We talked about MASH earlier. He was a doctor on the TV show MASH. right? He did a lot of uncredited work in The King and I. He was uncredited. The Wackiest Ship in the Army and The Great Imposter. He played a lot of background soldiers in which he was uncredited. Right? And I think that's all. I think I have Jerry Fujikawa. Jerry Fujikawa was also, he worked with Roman Polanski in Chinatown. Mm-hmm. And I think that concludes my cast list for A Quality of Mercy.
Now, Bond, was it this episode or was it the Godzilla episode that you said that your mother's maiden name was in?
Oh yeah, of course. My mom's maiden name was Nishimoto, and this is Dale Ishimoto. So, really, really close. I thought it was exactly the same, but after I printed it out, I realized they were saying Ishimoto and not Nishimoto.
Oh, okay.
Wow. All right. Well, let's launch into the episode. And again, I'm not going to walk through step by step like we normally do. Change it up a little bit as far as let's just maybe try to go for the three acts of the episode. Obviously, is there anything that sticks out? And just jump in, and we'll kind of do like a roundtable discussion. Anything that jumps out, we'll just talk about and discuss it, and we won't walk through every single episode, every single scene in the episode, and any quotes or anything that sticks out. We'll just go from there. So, anything? I did want to say, what was his name? Albert Salmi. Sergeant Caruso, I didn't realize until I did a little bit of research for this particular episode that he actually was in 3. He was already in a previous episode in season 2. He kind of plays the heavies in a lot of the episodes, and this is one character, Sergeant Kurosawa, that people don't end up hating him by the end of the episode. He actually played the good guy for once and not necessarily the heavy. So I guess I would consider him a veteran of the Twilight Zone after playing in 3 episodes. And I think the 3rd episode he's in might be in season 4, maybe season 5. And the episode title escapes me now, but essentially we're holed up. The Japanese are holed up in like a cave, right? And the Americans are scoping out, trying to basically flush them out so that they can. I don't know if the episode really says capture them, take them as POWs or whatever. We're approaching the end, obviously, of the war, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to trivia because August 6, 1945, obviously is an important date because that was the date of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So I think Rod used that purposefully. Use that date purposely, Jimbo.
Eric, well, they didn't bomb them the same day because I did a little thing, and the bombing of Nagasaki was actually on August 9th.
Okay.
And when they bombed Nagasaki, it was reported that 39,000 to 80,000 dead. For the bombing of Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, it's estimated 90,000 to 146,000 died. But I never knew this either. On August 2nd, 1945, this was the heaviest raid of the war. 800 B-29s dropped more than 6,000 tons of incendiary bombs on the Japanese cities, killing more than 80,000 people.
Wow.
That is a lot of firepower, folks.
Yeah, for sure. I would describe the soldiers. I did think that they did a really good job of, they looked tired and worn out. They're I think later on in the episode it talks about they basically had been serving for X amount of several months in a row.
Yeah, 24 months is what I have in my notes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So 24 months in a row, and they're ready to go home. And they're exhausted from the strains of war, obviously. And but I might be jumping ahead a little bit when this new what is he, a lieutenant? Lieutenant comes on the scene. But right in the beginning stages, again, I think we understand that Rod wrote from a perspective of something that he knew, and obviously having fought in World War II, it made a huge impression on him. And the backstory of when they were dropping food, I think I mentioned this before, seeing one of his fellow soldiers get hit by the pallets as they were dropping them from the air. One of them got decapitated, and I think that really made a really lasting impression on him personally. So that there's a lot, and we talked about this off air, a lot of Cold War era episodes and written from his perspective. But as we move past his narration, that sort of concludes Act 1, and they're trying to get into that cave. But
I do love that when Lieutenant Cattell comes in, you could, like you were saying, he's really revving to go. He wants to make his name as a lieutenant. Kind of wants to prove himself. You could tell he's younger than the guys who see that's serving under him. They're tired, they're dirty, they're sweaty, they want to go home.
Yep.
They're in the jungles. And I noticed that they did a really good job of making sure that Lieutenant Cattell's clothes don't fit quite right.
Mm-hmm.
They put him in larger clothes on purpose.
Mm.
So that way he looks younger, he looks scrawnier than everybody else out there in the jungle. And kind of like the same trick that they would use for Captain America before Steve Rogers got his shots. He's just very, very weak, very small. And the way they pull that off is by putting him in clothes that are just a little bit too big for him. And I thought that the production crew did a great job on that, is making him look young and anxious and ready to go.
Yeah, that's a great point. Lieutenant Cattell, and also like he has that brash arrogance too. Like, and he's just from boot camp. You can tell like he's following the orders to the letter of the law, basically, of what he was taught in boot camp, because the one soldier tries to address him, right? And he's laying on the ground, and he basically scolds him and reprimands him, like, when you address a fellow officer, you stand up and address him, and these guys have been in the theater of war, obviously, for several months on end. And it's a whole different ball game when you're talking about, boot camp training versus, actually in the theater of war.
Well, I also like that they said that, hey, you're the third lieutenant that's came in here. We all the other ones died. So,
Right.
And they're also quick to point out the fact that, hey, take the brass off of your shoulder, take off your helmet. Right. Your rank is showing, and you're asking us to salute you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? If the Japanese are able to peek out of that cave, they're going to see right away who to aim at. Because
they said something about Japanese snipers, didn't they?
Yeah.
They did, yeah.
What did they call him, Jimbo? Do you remember the nickname they gave?
Yeah, it's
right off the top?
The pea green shave tail, baby. That's what they called him. And I asked Eric if he knew what a pea green shave tail was. He didn't know. Now, Bond, did you research this, or do you know what a pea green shave tail is?
I have no idea. I was called that in high school, and I had no idea why. So, no, I'm just kidding.
So here it is. So what I found, there's two of them that I found. One is a derogatory term for a second lieutenant or a newly officer that came in. Or number two, it's a pack mule that has not been broken in or trained yet. So that's pretty funny.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So he comes in and sort of takes the reins, right? They've been told over the radio to call off, to stand by essentially and wait for further instructions. Well, Cattell, as Bond said earlier, he wants to come in and make a name for himself. He feels like maybe he can, I don't know, advance his career, or who knows what his motivations were, but he's gung-ho, to say the least. And, they're going to go in there and they're going to take that cave no matter, what instructions are coming from outside, over the radio. And that causes a conflict with some of the other soldiers who have been, in theater for a while. And, he doesn't take any time to confront here, and we're in Act 2. He's confronting almost everyone in his platoon, making sure that they understand that he's, the man in charge and all that stuff. And so anything else stick out here with you guys
I did like the way that the other soldiers would look at their own sergeant to make sure it was okay to follow his orders.
Right. That's a good point.
Lieutenant Cattell would say something, and they would kind of look at the sergeant for permission, or like, do we really have to do what he says, or do we have to listen to this guy type thing?
Right. And so he takes the reins and he looks through the binoculars. They decided that they're going to go in. So then the next shot is the guys, putting mud on their faces. They're gearing up to go in, and they're following orders. And as they're talking and loading their weapons and all their ammo and everything, is it right? It's near here where we make the big switch. I guess the Twilight Zone twist kind of comes early in the episode, midway through the episode, right? Instead of maybe at the end and other previous episodes. Let me look at trivia.
Did you happen to notice, though, that... So I think something we failed to mention is that they have these pair of binoculars that they are watching this cave with, and you see bombs going off, and they're the guy on the radio behind him, he's like, oh, you missed the entrance by 50 clicks or whatever. So they're communicating back to whoever's dropping the bombs, hey, you missed it 50 clicks, you need to get closer or whatever. So every time they're looking through the binoculars, you see this little explosion go off. It's getting closer and closer. Now, this is at the point where the binoculars happen to fall to the ground, right? And if you notice when this happens, you will notice that it goes from like dark to light on the ground. The shadows like dissipate and it becomes brighter.
Right.
And when Cattell goes to pick up the binoculars, he's no longer Lieutenant Cattell. He's now Yamuri. Am I saying that right, Bon?
That sounds good to me, man. Sergeant Yamuri.
All right. So, and lo and behold, he is now on the Japanese side, but they are the ones on the outside, and the Americans are trapped up into the cave where he says there's probably 20 to 30 of them. They don't know. So it's basically a parallel story of just switch sides is what it boils down to. And I thought it was funny that when the guy says, hey, and he looks at the guy, he just starts
running away.
Forrest Gump, running through the forest and everything. So he gets over to the cave and they just start like, he's like, whoa.
Yeah, he thinks he's face to face with the enemy somehow, right? He's confused, obviously.
Yeah, and then he's commended on his bravery when he gets back too. Like, wow, I can't believe he ran right to the cave.
Well, I mean, you got to remember in World War II, kamikazes in Pearl Harbor, that was like the most highest form of honor you could get. You're giving your life to take out more than one
extreme
American
bravery,
or whatever.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, so he charges the cave and then gets shot at and then ducks for cover, and then he's got some backup behind him now. And then I think it all starts to sort of come together that he's on the other side. Obviously, a great deal of confusion. And then we have the close-up shot before we go to a commercial before we start the third act of like some shell casings laying on the ground. And so then we have obviously go to commercial and we open up the third act with, again, there's going to be dialogue between Yamuri and his Japanese counterparts, and then that's when they're talking about his bravery. He's a lieutenant in the Japanese army as well. They say he's trying to go in single-handedly, and anything.
But this is
and
where
for some reason.
Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Go ahead. I was going to say, for some reason, they go back 3 years, like to the beginning of the war. Mm-hmm. The time is no longer near the end of the war, but now it's like closer to the beginning. I think it's like 6 months after the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, 1942. And again, he's just confused and he's trying to piece it together.
Well, I think this is where he starts having the mental breakdown too, isn't it? When he falls down to the ground, and this is where you see what's his name, the Japanese captain Fujikawa comes up. He's like, "Are you okay? What's wrong?
Are you sick? Yeah,
we can't take you with us. You'll just slow us down, and all this stuff." So by now he's really scared. Like, no, I'm okay. I was just You know, I was confused, if you
Right.
will. But they have this long dialogue, and this is what I hated about this episode is the Captain Fujikawa. He talks to the guy with his back to the camera for like that whole entire conversation. To me, when you're shooting a scene like this, you need to position the camera where you can, you know, even though he's talking to him, you need to see them both, because that's a powerful,
Oh yes,
that
he's
is
got
a
his head
powerful
turned in.
moment in the episode. And I don't want to see the back of some guy's head while he's talking, you know, berating or having this powerful conversation of what the whole episode is about. I don't want to see the guy's back of the head. You need to offset the camera where, even though they're looking at each other, the audience can see what's going on. That's just my own personal preference. I think that really bugged me a lot, though.
I have to agree with that. I think that it would have been much better if they were facing each other, or like you said, had two cameras,
Right.
One facing each person, so the conversation would go back and forth. I think that would have made much more sense.
Yeah, the nature of their conversation is now Cattell / Yamuri, he has a different, the whole emphasis is he's got a different point of view, right? And he's trying to persuade his leadership maybe to stand down, if you will, and not attack the cave, because, you know, the Americans are inside, and, you know, and having that point of view of being on the other side, you know, and obviously that is a conflict there.
I think he's starting to sound, and he's starting to remember what Sarge was trying to tell him earlier.
Right.
He said, look, they'll hold him in the cave. You know, we can outlast them. They're going to die of starvation eventually.
Right.
You know, just have a little humanity. We don't need to go in there and throw. He's like, but a couple of grenades in there, we could end this, you know, this hold up or whatever.
Right.
I think he's starting to see what Sarge was talking about, and starting to say, oh, well, maybe Sarge is right. And I was all gung ho, but I didn't think about the Japanese as human beings as well. They were just the enemy for the entire time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is the point where he goes from suspected malaria to some sort of conscious.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's deeply thinking about the way he was acting, the words that he had just said. And so, because, like you're saying, the twist comes in the middle, he starts to realize and see that the war from the other side of the cave, starts to see it from the other point of view. And the captain is just gung-ho, ready to go. He's more, to me, he was more excited about attacking the cave full of defenseless people than even he was.
Yeah, that was his last instruction before he switches back, I guess, if you will, to the American side. We're going in to destroy these guys. Yeah, that was the command. So, and then we come back to the American side, I guess, if you will.
Well, he picks up the binoculars.
The binoculars again. Right.
He picks them up, and when he looks through it, comes back, he's back as Lieutenant Cattell.
Yeah, and that's an object lesson too, right? Binoculars, view, point of view, right? What you can see, that's the alternating back and forth. That's a good prop piece, those binoculars.
And if I'm even remembering correctly, I think that the lens was cracked.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think when they show it, I think the lens is cracked on there. So that's even goes further. It says it's like a skewed view of the world.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The lens is cracked now.
Yeah, exactly. All right, then we close in to the end of the episode. Really, anything else stick out at the end of the episode? If not, we're going to transition over to a little trivia.
No, I think
one of the things I wanted to. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Bon.
Oh, one of the things I wanted to mention was I really like the fact that they used the same lines.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the lines were exactly the same. Like "kill until you are ordered to stop killing" was a line that both sides said at one point. How many must die was quoted back to him. Right.
Yeah.
And of course, was it the first day of the war, the last day of the war? You just destroy them all. It doesn't matter what day of the war it is, kind of thing.
Yep.
And I might be paraphrasing, but I like the fact that some of the lines from earlier are used again in his face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Let's transition to a trivia here. The title refers to a quote from William Shakespeare's play, The Merchant of Venice. The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as gentle rain from heaven. And I've got the full context here. I might read at the very end in our questions and observations. Dean Stockwell had to drop out of the Purple Testament episode in 1960 due to scheduling conflicts. 2 years later, he starred in this episode. Both stories are about American soldiers who have supernatural visions during the Pacific War in 1945, and both have William Shakespeare quotes as titles. Well, that's interesting parallels there. We already talked about August 6th and the significance of that. I didn't. That was interesting, though, Jimbo, that I thought they were simultaneously bombed on the same day, but that was an interesting piece of history there, that it was 2 different dates. This episode was one of 4 episodes to be remade for the Twilight Zone movie in 1983, though only loosely remade in this instance. The relevant segment was directed by John Landis. Is that the segment in that movie that everyone died?
Yeah, with the kids.
I think so. Yeah, the big tragedy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure on that. So Dean Stockwell's Lieutenant Cattell was supernaturally placed in another person, with another person in another time. Stockwell's later series, as mentioned earlier, Quantum Leap in 1989, was about a character who jumps into the lives of other people. So that's kind of an interesting parallel too. Albert Salmi he appeared in the episode Execution in 1960 and would later appear in it's called Of Late Think of Cliffordville, 1963 episode of the Twilight Zone, all of which involve time travel. A Quality of Mercy is the only one in which his character is not portrayed as despicable. And like I said earlier, he's normally plays the heavy in the other episodes. Dean Stockwell, or Lieutenant Cattell, later played Martin Decker in the Twilight Zone 1985. I don't know if this is the episode, Room 2426. I'm not familiar with the 1985 version of the Twilight Zone at all. So I guess he played a role in one of those episodes in 1985. This episode was set in a locale where Serling himself was, after enlisting in the U.S. Army, I'm sorry, I miswrote that. Serling, following his basic training, he went to the Pacific as part of an assault and demolitions team. In 1945, while he was fighting in the Philippines, his father died of a heart attack at age 52. We notified Rod through the American Red Cross, recalled his brother Bob, for the premiere issue of Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone. I guess there was a magazine, Twilight Zone magazine, that came out in April of 1981, and they interviewed his brother Bob Serling, and he's recalling that issue. And so Rod asked for an emergency leave, and he was refused. This sort of rejection would have displeased any man serving abroad, possibly suggesting that the character of Corisano in this episode was the basis for Serling's disgruntlement against the military superiors who felt the death of the enemy was more important than moral compassion. So if you can kind of connect the dots there, Rod had a personal situation that happened when his father died while he was overseas, and he asked for a leave so that he could go to his father's funeral, and he was denied. And that brought a lot of consternation and maybe some disgruntlement that prompted the writing of the episode. In the original script, the opening scene of this episode begins with a Jeep pulling up toward the infantry position, entering the clearing and stopping. Lieutenant Cattell arrives almost immediately in the original version of the episode. He's described as a 20-year-old shaved tail whose fatigue shined with creased newness. He climbs out of the Jeep, looks around at the bearded, dirty, tired-looking men who survey him, yanks his duffel bag, and sends it falling to the ground. He looks briefly over hand check and makes his entrance. When a number of pages went through revision, the opening was extended so that Cattell did not arrive in the opening scene. So I guess it was like literally right at the beginning was his arrival on the scene there. And then I've got one more trivia point, and then we can get our thoughts. Jimbo, did you have any trivia?
No, I just did. Did you say this was filmed on the jungle set of the backlot of the Hal Roach Studios?
No, I didn't. I neglected that earlier, but I had. Let me just give you dates of rehearsal. Just one day of rehearsal for this, which is kind of unique as well, and then 3 days of filming. So the rehearsal date was June 28th. 3 days of filming were June 29th, 30th, and then July 3rd of 1961. And then finally, this last trivia point, Serling's love for writing stories about war would extend beyond this episode. In the summer of 1964, he approached CBS News president Fred F. Friendly about a documentary in depth in which the network proposed Serling write and narrate, about Corregidor. He had passed through the Philippine bastion during World War II, and having done a recent personal appearance tour, found it as a place of rack and ruin and was tremendously enamored with the idea. It was, Serling explained, historically the low ebb of the United States military fortunes, and yet had great dignity. So I guess he had a special kind of place in his heart for that particular part of the world and that particular theater of the war in the Philippine Islands in that area, having served in the Pacific. So that wraps up the trivia that I have. Jimbo, sorry, 2 goofs, I guess. I don't want to leave those out. As the platoon is getting ready to attack the cave, the lieutenant puts his binoculars down on a large boulder and checks his sidearm. A hollow thump can be heard as he puts the binoculars down, so thus revealing it was a fake boulder. And then finally, when Lieutenant Cattell feeds a round in his pistol, he puts it back in his holster without putting the hammer on safe or putting his firearm on cocked and locked. So any trained soldier would know that they don't put their firearm away like that. I guess he loaded it and cocked the hammer and then put it back in his holster. And you don't ever do that, I guess.
I don't know if that second one would be considered a fluff though, because he was naive. You know what I'm saying? They show him as a naive officer. So the fact that he did forget before he put it in almost fits his character.
Yeah, valid point. Yeah, for sure. You know, some people on IMDb, I mentioned it before, they get really down to the nitty gritty. And sometimes I think they almost overthink some of the episodes. That's a good point though. Jimbo, any extemporaneous trivia?
No, there's really not a lot of information. You know, for an episode of this magnitude, there really wasn't a lot in all my other books that I had that hasn't already been said. So,
all right, we'll just go around the horn. Jimbo,
let's let Bond go first.
Yep, let's let our guest go first.
I will end this episode.
Oh, okay, I see how it is. So, Mr. Bond, tell us your questions and observations and your overall feelings, ratings, and
my first observation. We decided to sacrifice the new guy, so we're gonna let you go first. I did find that there was a lot of like racial slurs that couldn't be used today.
Yep.
So as I'm watching it, like you said, I'm half Japanese, and so as I'm watching it through the 2024 lens, I'm listening to it, and I heard, you know, like the word Japs over and over again. And I'm pretty sure that if you did this episode today, I don't know how you would get around it. It fit the time, it fit the war, but it's just not one of those words we use all the time today. So that was one of the first things I noticed. I was like, wow, they're really just throwing that word around. So,
yeah, they were.
Yeah. And then one of the things that really bothered me throughout the episode was they kept saying they were there for 24 months waiting, and they were just stuck in the jungles, and these guys were holed up in this cave. But every time they showed the cave, the bombs were going off right outside the cave door. How much closer do you expect these bombers to get? They can get as close as the front door. That's about it. They can't bomb the inside part of the cave. So I thought that was something that I had a hard time getting through, because I was like, I don't see how they could do any better than what they were doing.
Right. Why not just bomb the cave and cause a cave in, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what they were expecting. Overall, I thought that for the time, I thought the makeup was pretty good to make him look like he was Japanese when he goes back and he becomes part of the Japanese army.
Right.
The accents were terrible.
Yes, they were. I have a question about that though. Does that bother you? Like, I'll use blackface when people use blackface in comedies or whatever. To see something like this where they put the makeup on to make him look Japanese. Like you could go back to what was there, Breakfast at Tiffany's with Mickey Rooney.
Oh, that's the notorious one.
Right.
That's the running joke.
But I mean,
that was so bad.
Since you're half Japanese, does seeing something like that bother you, Bond?
I think that in this case, in this episode, the answer would be no. It doesn't bother me because of the character is already established as not being Japanese. And then so when he goes back to being, in the middle, when he becomes Japanese, they have to do something. They can't get a new actor to come in and play him. They can't get a Japanese actor to pretend like he's an American at the beginning. So the only choice is really to use makeup in some way to make him look more Japanese. I think what would have bothered me is if they didn't use Japanese actors as the other soldiers in the Japanese army.
Right.
The fact that he was surrounded by real Asian actors, I think that's what made a big difference for me. Because I'm like, well, yeah, they have to make him look like he became Japanese, because if he didn't, then the audience at home wouldn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
If he looked exactly the same as he did, but now he's surrounded by the Japanese army, people at home would say, shoot them, they're right there. But you can't do that. So you have to in some way show that he is now part of the Japanese army. It's kind of the same thing like when he goes and becomes part of the Japanese army, they're still speaking English.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just because it's for television. You have to do it that way. You can't have the middle of your Twilight Zone episode be just in subtitles. I don't think that would have worked.
Yeah, I think
as bad as the accents were.
Yeah, I think you make a very good point with the way the episode was written and everything. Where I think they really stretched it was the Peter Falk episode and the Mirror or whatever it was, where he played,
the Cuban leader or whatever.
Yeah, the quote unquote Cuban leader. That was a real stretch, but yeah, I appreciate your perspective and unique perspective that you can bring to this episode. It's very interesting. Any Jimbo, you're going last.
No, Bond. We need Bond to rate what he's rating.
Oh, right. You're rating the episode
and his prop piece. We got to get all that from him too. Still.
Oh, okay. In that case, I give this episode a 6 out of 10. I don't know what the overall rating is, so I'm just going to give it a 6 out of 10. Like I said, overall, I think the idea was good, but plot twist wise, there's not really a plot twist because it comes so early in the episode. There's no surprise ending, and I know that's really what Twilight Zone fans love is the surprise ending, the twist that you didn't see coming. There's nothing in this episode that makes you want to talk about this episode the next day. Did you see this episode of the Twilight Zone? There's nothing that does that. It becomes predictable, and the fact that he just goes back. Now, if they would have had a twist where he didn't go back and he stayed as now he's a Japanese army member in the cave. Then you're looking at something that you could talk about, a twist ending. But there's nothing. It's all predictable. There's no suspense at the end of your seat. I get the idea that he has a right of consciousness again, where he's like, okay, I understand the other side. A lesson was learned. I get that. That's why it gets a 6 out of 10 for me. Prop piece. I know everybody wants to say binoculars. I think that's the easy one. I think I'd like the little helmet with the little emblem on it, the little ranking on his helmet, the little gold bar on his helmet.
Nice.
Take that.
All right, 80s.
All right. I along with a few reviewers, actually, I didn't even realize Dean Stockwell was playing both parts until I had to, I watched it a second time. That I think that goes to the, the makeup and so forth that we referenced earlier. I actually thought there was another Japanese actor who was cast in the role of that soldier. For the first time I watched it, I had to go back and watch again. I went and looked at the cast list to get more information. And again, I already mentioned Peter Falk's portrayal was more of a stretch in the Mirror than I think this particular episode was. I don't have a whole lot of observations other than, the Union General William Tecumseh said war is hell, and there's no glory in war. right? And I think that was a main driving theme. Like, this lieutenant had to learn an important lesson. And like all of us, I think if we considered a younger version of ourselves, it would look very different than what it is now. Obviously, he was young and gung ho, trying to make a name for himself. And, he got an important lesson that all of us need to learn is perspective. And I think there's another episode, a couple episodes late from, I think it's in season 3, just thinking of I think it's called The Other Man's Shoes or something like that. That's a more corny, lighter episode than this one, but just that theme of, walk a mile in someone else's shoes, right? See something from their perspective. Try to understand that these are human lives. And I know war is, it's horrible. It's just, when you see the enemy combatants, obviously you have to compartmentalize that in some way. And it's hell. War is hell, to quote Tecumseh again. And then I just had a quote from Abraham Lincoln, because I guess it's been on my mind lately after watching that Manhunt series, like I told you guys about before. But in Lincoln's second inaugural address, it's actually in the movie Lincoln, the Spielberg movie. He quotes Lincoln's address, and I'll just read it again with, following the Civil War, the bloodiest war in American history, obviously, where I think it's like 600,000 plus men died on both sides. Laborious, most horrific, wars in our history. In his inaugural address, he says, with malice towards none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, for his widow and for his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish and just and lasting peace amongst ourselves with all nations. So again, I think that's applicable kind of in this episode. Like, these are real people with potential widows and orphans, the damage that war does. And, in Lincoln's perspective, he's trying to bring the nation back together as a collective union of states, and, not overly, I don't know what the word I'm trying to say. Basically, at the end of war, like, you understand that these are human beings that have lives and families, and they're just not combatants. And I guess that was the point that we were trying to make in the episode, perspective. I would say that this episode is probably IMDb rated at like a 7. I would say it's probably around that. I think it was a 7.3. I'd probably give it like a 6.8 to a 7. It was okay. I like the theme. I like the message that it was trying to send. I think it was pretty evident. I don't have a prop piece. I forgot to think about a prop piece. So Jimbo, you'll have to take 2 prop
You can
pieces.
take the binoculars, Eric, because that's not my prop piece.
Okay.
All right. Are you ready?
Go for it.
Now, I thought this was pretty funny. I'm going to throw this in here at the beginning because I said, I'm gonna make this interesting. So here we go. If you notice, the lieutenant is, the Japanese are holed up in the cave from the Rip Van Winkle caper from the season 2, episode 24.
Oh,
where the Jeep drops off. The lieutenant is the same one from the Purple Testament from season 1 and episode 19. Now, we're going to tie this back to episode 6 of The Mirror, because in The Mirror, the Cuban guy shatters the mirror, which come to find out that the binocular lenses are actually from the mirror in this. And you say, well, how can that be? That's 2 different time travel things. Well, that you're in luck, because I found out that in Once Upon a Time, the time traveling helmet transported him to the past to grab the pieces of the mirror to make the binoculars, which we now have in the future. So I just thought that was fun. I wanted to get that out there, but that's all just a big fib. I just tried to tie a bunch of episodes together. I thought it was pretty good. It
was a good shot.
I like it. Yeah,
there we go.
I like it. I think all Twilight Zone episodes are connected.
So here's my thing. The premise of the episode, I absolutely love. It's a 10. The premise of the episode, I like the idea. I like what they tried to do. The execution of the episode, however, is I give it a 6 because it's just okay set designs. It's kind of just it almost looks like reused hash from the Purple Testament or something. But where I really, really dislike this episode is from the acting of the episode. That Japanese Captain Fujikawa, it's like he's just talking. He's not delivering lines. It's just, I'm just saying words. It's like nothing. And honestly, I could say the same thing, and I'll say this here in a second. But like the acting and the accents, as Bond said. So here's how I said. I said I thought the Sarge was great in his acting. The lieutenant that came up, I said he was terrible. Cattell, he was terrible. But when he went to Yamuri, he got better, so he was just okay. I said, but that Japanese captain, he was just terrible. He was probably the worst actor of this episode. And I understand what they were trying to do. And I told you about that camera angle that just bothered me to no end. And a lot of people are like, well, you're too hard on these. Yeah, Dad, I am, because I deserve better. But to me,
show a little quality of mercy on the
I'm not. But I just wish the transition from the American to the Japanese was better. I think by doing the binoculars, I don't think that really, it didn't impact me as much as, let's say he turns back around, he's staring right at a Japanese soldier, and he's now, or even put him in the cave with the Japanese. I would have liked to seen, like Bond said, put it, if he would look at the binoculars, then now he's in the cave with the Japanese as a Japanese person from that perspective, and not on the outside looking in. I would have loved to see his perspective from the inside of the cave, or the Americans from the inside of the cave, something, because all we got was this outside stuff. And I would like to have seen how the dialogue would have went if they're in this cave. How are we going to get out of here? Our families, what are we going to tell? They're going to tell our families we're not going to make it out of here alive, and all this stuff. So for me,
I think that's a great idea, Jimbo, because you could have gotten the same point across. You could have taught the same exact lesson about mercy and about without having to switch roles. You could have had him as a Japanese person in the cave, learning about their families, learning who exactly they would be killing if they did so.
Maybe one of the Japanese soldiers in the cave had a newborn at home. Maybe this other one takes care of his family. And I don't necessarily think that they would have had to change, put makeup on him. I think if we're seeing him as he is, but let's say when he talks, the Japanese look and they see a Japanese person, okay, maybe their commander or whatever. But when we see him, it's still the same American guy. I think that's the way you could have got around having him put makeup on him. It could have just been a standing actor, but we see him as the American soldier and not the American with Japanese makeup on or whatever. You see what I'm saying? So it's not either here or there. I do think there was some good use of light and shadows in this, especially when the binoculars were picked up. It reminded me of, Eric, what was that one we recorded like 5 times, where he goes in and he lays on the couch and the shadows just close and it goes back light. It'll come to me eventually, but Perchance to Dream. Yes.
Yep.
So they did kind of the same thing with the binoculars. So you knew there was something going on there. Anytime there's some lighting that goes dim and goes bright or bright to dim, something's happening. So for that, I took all that into consideration. So I rated this a 6.5 out of a 10, because I do think it is an episode that can be shared, that really you can learn something from it if you pay attention. It's very, very heavily dialogue episode. It's not a lot of action. It's a lot of dialogue, kind of like our last episode. There was a ton of dialogue. My prop piece, though, I really had to dig for this one, but the Japanese Captain Fujikawa, he has a samurai sword on his hip. And I said, I am taking that bad boy home with me. So I gave it a 6.5. Bond gave it a 6. Eric gave it a 6.8?
6.8, yeah.
So we're all writing the same thing about
Relative,
it.
yeah.
I don't think it's going to be one that's at the end of the episode or at the end of the season for me to make it into my top 10. I don't think. I mean, we got a lot more to cover, but to me, it was just okay. I like the premise, but
it wasn't a bad episode. It wasn't.
Nothing.
It wasn't a bad episode at all. It's just there's no meat. There's nothing
that make it stand out head above shoulders above other episodes. Is what I'm saying. So.
Right.
Well, if you'd like to follow us, we are the Tragedy of Cinema podcast. You can follow us on Facebook, or you can email us at thetragedyofcinema at gmail.com. Bon, we want to thank you for coming on tonight. It's been fun to get to know you, and you did a really good job tonight. So I hope you had fun.
I did. I had a great time, guys. Thank you so much for the invitation to come on and talk about Twilight Zone with you. Jimbo, AZ, you guys are amazing. Keep doing what you're doing. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me on, man. It was a lot of fun.
Right back at you. Appreciate you.
With that being said, I think this episode is coming to a close, and that's a wrap.
And cut.
The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. Shakespeare, The Merchant of Venice. But applicable to any moment in time, to any group of soldiery, to any nation on the face of the earth, or, as in this case, to the Twilight Zone.